Welcome to this session on setting up the vendor master data template to import data into the system. In this session, we'll help you understand how to use the Excel workbook that's used to configure your vendor master data. The workbook contains several sheets, and each one has a specific purpose to help define how vendors are handled in the system. We'll start with the instruction sheet. This sheet acts as your step-by-step guide. It explains what details you need to enter, how to enter them correctly, and how the other sheets in the workbook are connected. It also highlights which fields are mandatory and what formatting is required to ensure a successful upload. The instruction sheet provides clarity on how to correctly define vendors, configure vendor contacts, locations, bank details, and assign accounting settings, along with related attributes such as payment methods and terms. These settings are essential for enabling consistent, accurate, and automated vendor handling across all transactions in the system. To learn more about how to use this guide, you can also watch the Data Template Overview session. It gives you a better understanding of how to read and work with the instruction sheet effectively. Let's walk through the Business Partner Group sheet. This sheet is used to define and manage the various types of business partner groups that exist within your organization, such as vendors that fall into categories like local vendors, raw material vendors, etc. Each row in this sheet represents one business partner group configuration. You'll enter key details that help categorize vendors and manage reporting or processing logic based on these groups. Let's start with the first column, Organization. Here, you need to enter the exact name of the organization that this business partner group applies to. For example, Sonic Venture. If the business partner group should apply to all organizations, simply enter an asterisk. This means the setup is common across every organization in the system. Next, we move to the search key. This field is used to uniquely identify each record. If you don't provide a value, the system will automatically generate a search key. However, it is good practice to provide a unique numeric value for easier tracking and referencing. Then we have the name. This is a mandatory field. You must provide the name of the business partner group. For example, values like local vendor or raw material vendor. This name helps the system and users recognize which group a vendor belongs to. Now, we come to the description. This field is optional, but it's highly recommended to fill it in. You can provide a brief description of the business partner group, for instance, vendors operating in the same region or supplies raw materials. This helps users quickly understand the purpose or categorization of the group during configuration and reporting. And that's it for the Business Partner Group sheet. Once this information is entered correctly, the system will be able to group vendors logically, enabling better organization, streamlined processing, and accurate reporting based on vendor types or categories. Now let's move to Accounting Default, BP Group sheet. This sheet is used to define the accounting defaults associated with specific business partner groups within an organization. These account mappings ensure that transactions for each vendor group are posted to the correct ledger accounts automatically and accurately. Let's start with the first column, Name of the organization. Here, you'll enter the exact name of the organization that the accounting defaults apply to. For example, Sonic Venture. If the defaults should apply to all organizations, you can enter an asterisk. This indicates that the settings are applicable system-wide across all organizations. Now, let's move to the second column, Business Partner Group. This field must be selected from the drop-down list, which pulls values from the name field in the Business Partner Group sheet. For example, local vendor or raw material vendor. This ensures that accounting rules are linked correctly to the appropriate vendor group. Next, we come to the accounting defaults, which are represented by the following columns: Accounts Payable Services, Accounts Payable Trade, Bad Debts, Write-off, Not Invoiced Receipts, Payment, Discount Revenue Vendor Prepayment. Each of these fields requires a ledger code that corresponds to a specific account in your chart of accounts. These accounts are used automatically during transaction posting. First, we have Accounts Payable Services. This is the account used when recording payables related to services procured from vendors. Next, we have Accounts Payable Trade. This field captures the ledger code for payables related to trade goods. Then comes Bad Debts Write-Off. This is the ledger account for writing off unpaid or unrecoverable vendor balances. Not invoiced receipts is next. This is the account used to record goods or services received from vendors that haven't been invoiced yet. Payment Discount Revenue. This field holds the ledger code where revenue from early payment discounts is recorded. Lastly, we have Vendor Prepayment. This is where the ledger code for advance payments made to vendors is entered. Important note: all ledger codes entered must already exist in your system's chart of accounts. Incorrect or missing codes will result in posting errors. And that's it for the accounting default BP group sheet. Once filled out correctly, this configuration ensures automated, accurate accounting for different types of vendor transactions based on their assigned business partner group. The next sheet is related to payment method. The payment method sheet defines how vendors are to be paid by the organization. It ensures consistency and compliance by standardizing available payment options across all transactions. Let's start with the first column, Name of the Organization. In this column, enter the exact name of the organization for which the payment method is being configured. For example, Sonic Venture. If the payment method applies to all organizations, enter an asterisk. This helps the system identify which payment method is valid for which organization. Next, we have the second column, Search Key. This is a unique identifier used to distinguish each payment method record. This value should be unique and consistent. If you do not provide a value here, the system may assign one automatically. Moving to the third column, Name of the Payment Method. This is the official name of the payment method being defined. Examples include check, wire transfer, or direct debit. This field is mandatory. It is used throughout the system to reference how payments are made. Now, let's look at the fourth column, Payment Base Type. This column specifies the fundamental type of payment used. This is a drop-down field, and only values from the list should be selected to maintain consistency. Next, we move to the fifth column. Payment Rule specifies how the payment is processed, either manually or electronically. Select a value from the drop-down list to ensure consistency. Available options: EFT, electronic funds transfer, and manual payment shape. Finally, we have the sixth column, Payment Type. Indicates whether payments are processed individually or in batches. Select from the drop-down list to ensure only valid options are used. Available options: batch, multiple payments processed together, and single, one payment per transaction. This configuration ensures that each vendor is associated with a well-defined, valid, and approved payment method. From the mode of payment to how and when it is processed, all parameters are covered in this sheet. Now, let's move to the next sheet, Payment Term. This sheet is used to define the terms of payment for your vendors. It specifies how many days after an invoice is issued that payment is expected, whether the payment is considered an advance, and if it should be the default term for that organization. First column, Name of the Organization. This column captures the exact name of the organization to which the payment term applies. For example, Sonic Venture. As seen across all sheets, the organization name must be consistent and correctly spelled. If the payment term applies universally, you may enter an asterisk, indicating that the term is common to all organizations. Next is the search key. This field is used to assign a unique identifier for each record. If you don't have a specific value, the system will generate one automatically. This is useful for internal system tracking and mapping. Then we have the name of the payment term. This is the label or title of the payment term, and it is required. Examples include immediate 30 days, 60 days next comes the description. This field is optional. You can use this to give a brief explanation of the term. This helps provide clarity when terms are similar or when documentation is required. For example, due date after 30 days, immediate payment, then the net days. This is a numeric field that defines how many days after the invoice date the payment is due. Examples: 0 for immediate 30, for due after 30 days, 60 for due after 60 days. Next is the advance column. This is a checkbox field represented by Y and N. Y means yes and N means no. Use Y if this payment term is considered an advance payment, otherwise use N. Then we have the default field. This field also uses Y and N to indicate whether this payment term is the default for the organization. Only one term should typically be marked as default for each organization. Finally, the schedule percentage and schedule net days columns. These are optional fields used for installment or split payments. Schedule percentage, the portion of the total amount due, e.g., 50 for 50%. Schedule net days, number of days after the invoice date for that portion to be paid. Leave these blank if the payment is not scheduled in parts. Note: make sure that all payment terms are properly configured and consistent across all related vendor data to ensure accurate due date calculations and payment scheduling in the system. This completes the configuration for the payment term sheet. This setup ensures that Sonic Ventures vendor payments follow predefined, controlled terms, improving cash flow management and accounting compliance. Let's move to Incoterm sheet. This sheet is used to define the Incoterms, international commercial terms, related to your vendors and organizations. These terms specify the responsibilities of buyers and sellers for the delivery of goods under sales contracts. First column, name of the organization. This column captures the exact name of the organization to which the Incoterm applies. For example, Sonic Venture. As in all sheets, the organization name must be consistent and correctly spelled. If the Incoterm applies universally, you may use an asterisk to indicate it applies to all organizations. Next is search key. This field is used to assign a unique identifier for each Incoterm record. If you don't have a specific value, the system will generate one automatically. This key helps with internal system tracking and mapping. Then we have the name of the Incoterm. This is the label or title of the Incoterm, and it is a mandatory field. Examples include Delivered Duty Paid, DDP, Carriage and Insurance Paid to CIP, Free Carrier, FCA. Finally, the description column. This field is optional, but it's highly recommended to fill it in. Use this field to provide a brief explanation or description of the Incoterm. This helps clarify the responsibilities and conditions defined by the term. Example description. Delivered duty, paid, DDP, means the seller assumes all responsibility for transporting the goods until they reach an agreed-upon destination. Note: make sure all Incoterms are accurately described and linked to the correct organization for consistent application during vendor transactions. This completes the configuration for the Incoterm sheet. The next sheet is related to vendor. The vendor sheet is designed to capture all essential information about suppliers that the organization does business with. It ensures each vendor is uniquely identified, categorized appropriately, and linked to the correct payment rules and methods. First column is name of the organization. This column records the name of the organization that is onboarding or managing the vendor. For example, Sonic Venture. If the vendor record applies to all organizations, use an asterisk. Ensure the name is consistent with other sheets for correct mapping. Next is vendor code. This is the unique identifier for the vendor. This must be unique for each vendor and is required. It helps in tracking and managing vendor records without confusion. Then we have name of the vendor. This field captures the official business name of the vendor. For example, Verizon Wireless, Telmex Global. This should be the same name that appears on invoices and contracts. This is a mandatory field. After that, we have group. This column categorizes the vendor based on their business type or purpose. For example, local vendor, raw material vendor, Select a value from the drop-down list, which is listed in the Business Partner Group sheet, specifically from the name field. Proper grouping allows for segmentation and applying specific processes per category. Next comes payment term. This defines the agreed duration within which the vendor should be paid after invoicing. Examples: immediate, 30 days, 60 days. Select a value from the drop-down list, which is listed in the payment term sheet, from the name field. This ensures consistent payment scheduling across the system. Then we have payment method. This field specifies how the payment will be made to the vendor. Examples: wire transfer, direct debit. Select a value from the drop-down list which is listed in the payment method sheet from the name field. It ensures that all vendors follow approved payment processes. Next is GSTIN. This field stores the goods and services tax identification number of the vendor. It is used for statutory compliance in tax reporting. Must follow the valid GSTIN format. If GST is applicable to the vendor, ensure this is filled correctly. Next is sales rep. This column captures the name of the sales representative assigned to the vendor. Example: Satish Sharma, Sapna Chawla. This value must match exactly with the name in the user master data. Please ensure the spelling is correct and consistent. Do not enter arbitrary names. It should match existing user records. Next is sales rep code. This field stores the employee code or business partner code of the sales rep if they are an employee of the company. Example: 3420011 3541787. This value must be sourced from the user master data field, employee code, or business partner code. Leave this field blank if the sales rep is not a company employee. Next is purchase price list. This column defines the name of the price list used to buy goods or services from the vendor. Example: purchase price list, Indian rupees. This must match exactly with the price list defined in the price list master. Don't type custom values. It should match an existing value from the price list configuration. Next is price list currency. This field indicates the currency in which purchases from the vendor are made. Example: INR USD. This is a drop-down field. Select from available currency codes to ensure accuracy. Next is vendor return policy. This column defines the return policy agreed upon with the vendor, specifying the time window within which returned goods are accepted. Select the value from the drop-down list to ensure uniform return terms across vendors. Example values: 7 days return, 15 days, return, 30 days, return, 45 days, return. Next is Incoterm. The Incoterm specifies the international commercial term that governs the shipping responsibilities between your organization and the vendor. Examples: delivered duty, paid, DDP, free carrier carriage and insurance paid to named place of destination. Please select a value directly from the drop-down list. The value must exactly match a valid entry from the Incot sheet. Next is Business Registration Number, BRN. This field captures the official registration number of the vendor, as issued by the government or regulatory authority. It acts as a legal identifier for verifying the vendor's legitimacy and compliance. Avoid duplicates or incorrect values. Next is Rating. This column classifies vendors based on their importance, performance, or reliability. Select a value from the drop-down list. Available values: not rated, low rating, medium rating, high rating. These ratings may later impact vendor prioritization, reporting, or workflow automation. Then we have supply type. This specifies the nature of transaction or supply category for the vendor. Select the correct value from the drop-down list. Ensure it matches predefined codes and descriptions. Next is PAN. This column records the vendor's permanent account number, PAN. a 10-character alphanumeric identifier issued by the Indian Income Tax Department. This is mandatory for Indian vendors for taxation compliance, helps ensure vendors are registered and validated under government regulations. Next is TAN. The Tax Deduction and Collection Account Number, TAN, is a 10-character alphanumeric code required for entities deducting tax at source. Next is TDS, applicable on AP invoice. This field indicates whether TDS should be deducted on accounts payable invoices from the vendor. This is a yes/no checkbox field. Enter Y for yes, TDS is applicable. Enter N for no, TDS is not applicable. Enter only Y or N. No other values are permitted. Next is TDS applicable on AP payment. This setting checks if TDS should apply during AP payments rather than on invoice. Enter Y or N based on your organizational TDS configuration. Enter Y for yes, apply TDS during payment. Enter N for no, TDS not applicable at payment stage. Finally, we have blank PO allow. Indicates whether blanket purchase orders, blanket POS, are allowed for this vendor. Enter Y or N based on your organization's procurement policy. Accepted values. Enter Y for yes, blanket, POS are allowed. Enter N for no, blanket POS are not allowed. Now that vendor records are defined, let's move to the vendor location sheet. This sheet captures detailed address and contact information for each vendor location. This information is crucial for documentation, logistics, taxation, and communication purposes. The first column is Name of the Organization. This identifies the organization for which the vendor location is being defined. Enter the exact organization name, e.g., Sonic Venture. This field is mandatory. It ensures the location is tied to the correct business entity. Next column is Vendor Code. This field connects the location entry to a specific vendor record from the vendor sheet. Select the value from a drop-down list. The drop-down pulls its values from the vendor sheet. This ensures data consistency and eliminates manual typing errors. You must select a valid vendor code that already exists in the vendor sheet. Do not enter free text. This mapping ensures that the system knows which vendor the location belongs to, which is essential for purchasing, compliance, and reporting. The next column is Address Line 1. This contains the main part of the address, typically the street name and number. This field is mandatory. Now we come to Address Line 2. Use this for any secondary address details like building names, apartments, or suites. Optional but helps in more accurate location referencing. Next is Address Line 3. This field is for additional details like town, area, or locality. Optional, but useful for precise delivery and tax localization. Moving on to City Name. Specify the name of the city where the vendor is located. This field is mandatory. Example: Chandigarh, Mumbai, Chennai. Used for tax reporting, jurisdiction mapping, and logistics. Next column is State Region. Enter the state or region of the vendor's address. Examples: Haryana, Maharashtra. This helps with legal, compliance, and shipping purposes. Now we have Zip Code, also referred to as the postal code. The value entered must be numeric, used for accurate delivery and tax region determination. Next is Country Name. This identifies the country associated with the vendor location. This is a mandatory field. Select the country name from the drop-down list. Example: India. The next column is Phone. This captures the primary telephone number for the vendor's location. It helps facilitate direct communication with the vendor for operational or logistical purposes. Finally, we have Fax. This column stores the fax number for the vendor's location, if one exists. It's an optional field used in cases where fax communication is still in practice. This sheet ensures that all vendor locations are precisely mapped with accurate, validated, and complete address and contact information. Next sheet is related to vendor contact. This sheet stores the contact details of individuals associated with a vendor. These contacts are crucial for operational coordination, communication, and issue resolution. First column is Name of the organization. This field defines the name of the vendor organization to which the contact belongs. It helps establish the association between the contact and the correct vendor entity. Then we have Vendor Code. This is a mandatory field and must match exactly with a value in the vendor sheet. It's selected from a drop-down list sourced from the vendor code column in the vendor sheet. Ensures each contact is mapped to the correct vendor master record. Next is Contact Person Name. Enter the name of the contact person responsible or available for communication with your company. This could be someone in accounts, procurement, or support. Example, Jack Clark. Now, email address. This is a required field. Enter the official email ID of the vendor contact, used for sending communications like POS, payment notices, or queries. Next column, Phone. Enter the landline or alternate number for the vendor contact. This number is used for formal communication or secondary verification. And finally, Mobile. Enter the mobile number of the contact person. This field is essential for quick coordination, especially in case of urgency. The vendor contact sheet captures the human connection within the vendor relationship. By storing each key person's name, email, and phone details, it ensures that communication lines remain open and reliable throughout the business process. Let's move to the bank account sheet. This sheet contains all essential banking details for each vendor, helping ensure payments are processed correctly and securely. First column is Name of the organization. Here you enter the name of the vendor's organization just like in the previous sheets. This links the banking details to the correct vendor. Next column is Vendor Code. This is the unique identifier for each vendor. It should be selected from the drop-down, which pulls values directly from the vendor sheet. Next is Bank. This field captures the name of the vendor's bank. It should match with the official bank name from the bank master data. Examples: State Bank of India, ICICI, Bank. Moving on to Bank Account. Type. This defines what type of account the vendor is using. You will select this from a drop-down list, which includes options like checking savings, letter of credit, credit card. Next is Routing Number. This field contains the bank routing number used to route checks and enable electronic transactions. It uniquely identifies the legal bank. Next is Account Name. This is the name of the person or business holding the bank account. For examples, Prakash, Ved, Sanjay. Next column is Account Number. Here you enter the full bank account number of the account holder required for direct transactions, followed by BBAN and IBAN. BBAN is the basic bank account number. IBAN is the international bank account number. These fields are optional and are generally used for international transactions. Address fields like address line 1, 2, 3, city name, state, zip code, and country name. Enter them the same way as explained in the vendor location sheet. Just make sure this time you're entering the bank's address details, not the vendor's. So follow the same format. Just update the data according to the bank's location. The next sheet is related to unallocated and unreconciled payments. This sheet records payment transactions that have not yet been allocated to specific invoices or fully reconciled, helping track payments that need further action for proper accounting and vendor reconciliation. The first column is Organization. This field captures the name of the organization responsible for the payment transaction. For example, Sonic Venture. The next column is Payment Document Number. This represents the unique identifier for each payment document. Each number must be unique to avoid confusion in tracking payments. Then we have Document Type, which specifies the type of payment document involved in the transaction. For example, AP payment. The value in this field must be selected from a drop-down list to maintain consistency across records. Next column is bank name, which captures the name of the bank through which the payment was processed. Examples include State Bank of India or ICICI Bank. The value should be sourced from the bank master data to ensure accuracy. Next is bank account number. This field stores the account number used for the payment transaction and must exactly match a value in the bank master sheet's bank account column to ensure correct linkage. Moving on to transaction date, which records the date on which the payment transaction took place. The date format should be DD-MM-YYYY, for example, 22nd August 2025. Then we have account date. This field records when the payment transaction is posted in the accounting system. The date format should be DD-MM-YYYY. Moving on, as on date, cutoff date. This is an informative field that shows the cutoff date for the balances being imported. It tells us the specific date from which we are taking or retrieving the balances. Next, description allows for an optional note such as AP payment against AP invoice, helping provide context for auditors or analysts during reviews. Then vendor code, select the unique identifier assigned to the vendor from a drop-down list. This list is populated from the vendor sheet to ensure consistency and accuracy in linking the invoice to the correct supplier. Moving on, currency code captures the currency in which the payment transaction is recorded, such as INR. You must choose this from a drop-down list to maintain consistency and accuracy. Next, currency rate type defines the conversion method applied, for example, spot, average, company, or period end, and is used internally when processing foreign currency transactions. This aligns with accounting best practices around transaction valuations. Then, currency conversion rate captures the actual exchange rate used when converting a payment from foreign currency to local currency. If your transaction uses multi-currency, you must enter this numeric rate here. Accurately recording this helps in tracking realized gains or losses during payments. Moving on, payment amount in local currency shows the converted amount in your local accounting currency, for example, 20,000. This is a mandatory field and ensures your financials are recorded uniformly in the reporting currency. Next, payment amount in document currency records the original invoice amount in its native currency, if different from the local one. This allows for precise audit trails and currency tracking. Essentially, it helps distinguish between the document's nominal value and its converted local value. Then, payment method specifies how the payment was made, such as direct debit or wire transfer. This must be chosen from a drop-down list tied to the payment method sheet for consistency and accurate processing. Moving on, check date is required only if your payment method is set to check. Enter the date in DDMMYYYYY format to indicate when the check was issued. Next, check number captures the check number. Enter the exact check number when applicable. This helps with tracking and reconciliation of check payments. Then, is prepayment indicates whether the payment is an advance or prepayment. Enter Y for yes or N for no. It helps the system handle the payment appropriately as a prepayment. Moving on, is reconciled is a yes-no checkbox, showing whether the payment has been matched against the bank statement. Enter Y if reconciled, or N if bank reconciliation is still pending. Next, is allocated lets you mark whether the payment has been applied to a specific invoice. Enter Y if allocated, or N if still unassigned. This ensures completeness in invoice matching. Finally, ledger code records the mapping reference to your general ledger. Enter the code used in your accounting system to link this transaction to the appropriate GL account. This ensures traceability, audit readiness, and alignment with standard accounting practices. In this way, you enter the data in the workbook for unallocated and unreconciled payments. Ensure each field is filled accurately to maintain consistency and facilitate smooth reconciliation processes. Let's move to the outstanding payable invoices sheet. This sheet is used to record and upload all outstanding vendor invoices that are payable as of a specific opening date. These entries ensure that your payables ledger is accurate and all historical liabilities are properly brought into the system. Each row in this sheet represents a single vendor invoice and includes key fields to help the system correctly identify, classify, and schedule the payment of each invoice. Let's go through each column step by step. First, we have organization. Here, you need to enter the exact name of the organization that this invoice applies to. For example, Sonic Venture. This allows the system to correctly associate the invoice with the right legal entity. Then we have invoice document type. Select the appropriate invoice document type from the drop-down list. Common examples include AP invoice, AP credit memo. This helps the system identify the nature of the transaction, whether it's a regular invoice or a credit memo. Next is invoice document number. This is a unique identifier for the invoice being entered. This number should be unique and helps in tracking and referencing invoices in the system. Then we have order reference. If this invoice is linked to a sales or purchase order, enter that reference here. This field is optional but useful for traceability between orders and invoices. Next is vendor invoice number. Enter the original invoice number received from the vendor. This ensures proper reconciliation between vendor records and your internal system. Then we have description here. You can enter a short description for the invoice. For example, account payable invoice, credit memo against invoice number. This field is optional but helps clarify the nature of the transaction. Next is date invoice. This is the date printed on the invoice document. Use the format DD-MM-YYYY. This helps establish when the invoice was issued. Then we have account date. Enter the general ledger posting date for the invoice. Format should also be DD-MM-YYYY. This determines when the expense or liability is recognized in your books. Next is vendor code. This is the unique code assigned to the vendor in your vendor master. It ensures the invoice is linked to the correct vendor account. Then we have payment term. Specify the payment term agreed with the vendor. Examples include immediate 30 days, 60 days. This must be chosen from a drop-down list tied to the payment term sheet for consistency and accurate processing. Then we have due date. This is the net due date by which the invoice is expected to be paid. Format DD-MM-YYYY. This is calculated based on the invoice date and payment term. Then we have payment method. This column captures how the buyer chooses to pay the seller. This must be chosen from a drop-down list tied to the payment method sheet for consistency and accurate processing. Next is currency code. Here you must specify the currency in which the invoice is raised. This value should be selected from the drop-down to ensure consistency across all transactions. Then we have currency type. This column indicates how the currency conversion is handled. Options usually include average company period and spot. This helps define which exchange rate to use when converting foreign invoices into your reporting currency. Next is currency rate. If the invoice currency is different from your local currency, enter the exchange rate used for conversion here. For example, if 1 USD equals 83 INR, then enter 83.00. If the currency is same as local, for example, INR to INR, this field can be left blank. Then we have representative name. Enter the name of the vendor representative or the company agent handling this invoice. For example, Satish Sharma. This name should ideally match the entries in the user master to maintain consistency. Next is representative, staff ID/employee code. If the representative is an employee of your company, enter their staff ID or employee code here. This is used to internally track which employee managed the vendor relationship. Then we have invoice amount in local currency. This column records the invoice value in your local currency, regardless of what currency the vendor issued it in. For example, 16,000 rupees. This ensures that the accounts payable reflects correctly in your domestic books. Next is invoice line amount in specific currency. If the invoice is in USD and the exchange rate is 80, then this column may show 200. If the invoice currency and local currency are the same, values here will match the local amount. Finally, we have ledger code. This is the GL account or ledger code where this invoice will be posted. It must be selected from the list of predefined ledger accounts in the system to ensure proper financial mapping. The outstanding payable invoices sheet plays a key role in capturing all opening AP balances during your system migration. Each column helps classify and record the invoice accurately, so it's important to fill this sheet with clean, validated data. Next sheet is related to outstanding payable invoices. Schedule after entering the outstanding payable invoices, you need to fill the outstanding payable invoices schedule sheet. The first sheet records the total invoice amount due, while the second breaks it into scheduled payments. Each invoice number in the schedule is selected from a drop-down linked to the previous sheet. The total of all scheduled payments should match the invoice amount entered earlier. First, we have name of the organization. Here, enter the exact name of the organization to which the invoice applies. For example, Sonic Venture. Then, invoice document type. Select the correct invoice type from the drop-down list. For example, AP invoice or AP credit memo. This helps the system distinguish between regular payables and credit memos or refunds. Next is invoice number. This is a drop-down. Select the invoice number from the outstanding payable invoices sheet. This ensures that the payment schedule is tied directly to a valid existing invoice. Then, date invoice. Enter the same invoice date that was entered in the outstanding payable invoices sheet. This keeps both sheets aligned and helps in calculating due dates and aging. Next is payment due date. Enter the due date for the payment. Enter the date here based on the selected payment term in the outstanding payable invoices sheet. For example, if the payment term is 30 days and the invoice date is the 1st of September 2025, then due date equals the 1st of October 2025. Then, amount due. Enter the amount payable for this specific schedule. This may be the full invoice amount or a partial installment, depending on how the payment is planned. For example, 16,000. This field should be filled in numeric format only. Next is currency. Choose the currency code in which the invoice was issued. This must be selected from the drop-down list. For example, INR, USD. This helps the system determine if currency conversion is needed. Then we have amount in local currency. Enter the same amount if the invoice is in local currency, or enter the converted value in local currency. This is the amount that will be recorded in your books for accounting purposes. Finally, amount in specific currency. If the invoice currency is different from the local currency, enter the original foreign currency amount here. If both currencies are the same, this value will match the local amount. In this same way, you can enter the details of outstanding invoices and invoice schedules. Now let's move to the final sheet, List Reference. This sheet contains all the standard drop-down options and lookup codes that are used across the other sheets in the workbook. Here, you'll find important categories like Credit Status Notification, Type Vendor Return Policy Control Basis Country Details, Currency Rate, Type Document Type, and more, all listed clearly for easy selection. Using these predefined lists helps keep your data consistent and accurate, reducing the chance of manual errors. It also speeds up your work because you can simply select values from drop-down menus instead of typing them out each time. Whenever you're filling out any of the other sheets and need to know which options to choose, you can refer back to this list reference sheet for quick guidance. By following the structure and rules outlined in this session, you'll be able to complete and upload your vendor-related data template accurately and efficiently. Thank you for going through this session. We hope it helps you fill in the vendor-related data correctly and ensures smooth and consistent vendor master data management.